Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So as I share my screen, I'll share once again that we have a jam-packed agenda today, and a lot of this is going to be very interactive. So just prepare yourself because I'm going to be talking a lot, but I'm also going to hand things over to you. We're going to have a chance to do some workshopping here, which is going to be awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and as I do, I just want to make sure that everybody is able to see my slides. So if I could just get a couple of folks chiming in the chat, that always makes sure that I'm showing the right thing, that you're seeing my slides. Awesome, Nicole. Yes, thank you. Joey and Trevor, you guys let me know if at any point there's any tech things that we need to adjust, but really excited to get going here. So again, welcome you all. Thank you so much for being here. I know I've had a chance to meet some of you, but not everyone. So I'm just going to do a quick introduction to myself. I'm Annie Mosbacher. I am the Chief Growth Officer here at Dubsado. I joined Dubsado just a couple of months ago, but before I joined the company, I was running a marketing agency. So I ran a marketing agency for about 5 years, co-founded with one of my very best friends, and we grew and scale from, 0 to 7 figures over that time. So again, before I joined Dubsado, I was very much in the trenches running a small creative business, and I knew everything that it takes to get into that. So I knew all the hats that you guys are wearing. I know how hard it is to juggle managing clients with also thinking about growing your business, making sure that you're being as efficient as possible. So I really wanted to present some of the key things that I've learned along the way, as well as throughout my entire career in a variety of different places around goal setting. So this is really something that I wished that I had figured out much earlier in my own small business and founder journey. And so not only are we going to talk about kind of broad goals and how those can fit into your business, but we're really going to be talking about how to create goals that stick, that don't just gather dust on a whiteboard or in a notebook, but that can really help you level up your business and how you want to grow. So with that, we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So as we get going, I think there is something that we have to name right away, which is that when running a business, it's really common for a lot of us to run our business based on hope. And so that can look like hope for inbound lead requests, right? That can be hoping that our clients refer us, hoping that if we work hard enough and we just run all the playbooks that all the influencers out there are telling us to do, that things will just work out. And I know that this is true because I have really been there. I have absolutely been in a position where, you have all the hope in the world and all the best intentions, but that when you get stuck in the space of hope and hoping that things will work, that's what can lend into running a passive business. And we know that passive leadership just isn't really going to get you on the path that you want to. When you do that, you're letting things happen to you and not focusing your efforts on how you want to be much more assertive and in charge of what you want. So today we're really going to flip this away from relying on hope instead to some simple practices that you can put into place to make sure that you are really aligning your efforts in a way that's going to drive the growth of your business. So with this story time, I want to share a little bit about how I learned some of these lessons the hard way. So before starting my own business in an agency, I really focused on goal setting for companies that had anywhere from 50 to 200 people. So these were relatively large companies with lots of internal infrastructure, lots and lots of teams. And I was really good at this. I kind of became like an expert on all the different goal setting strategies, all the different frameworks. I knew how to coach different teams and help them build out these goals, but it was at a really large scale. So when I started my own business, right, we didn't have 50 employees. We certainly didn't have 200 employees. We had two. And we did end up growing that over time. But the first time I tried to set goals as we started our business, they ended up gathering dust on a shelf. We were so excited on January 1st to come together, have a big planning day, CEO day, a leadership day to come up with our goals. But then we got into January 2nd and the second week of January and into February, and life and work got so busy as we were trying to juggle all those many things that our goals just ended up sitting aside, gathering dust. And so, like, the busyness of putting out all of those fires really ended up getting in the way of us being able to intentionally set a course for where we wanted to go and achieve those goals. So the next year, we looked back and we realized, okay, year one was awesome. It got us to where we are now. But we have to really think about how can we focus on a business strategy and set goals and actually stick to them. So that's what we did in year two. And I will tell you that that's when everything started to change. We really started to grow. We started to see incremental and then dramatic growth in our revenue. We were able to bring on new folks into the team, expand and take on new clients. And it was all because we sat down together as a leadership team, as our duo of co-founders, to establish where we wanted to go and really think about how we wanted to set goals, stick to them, measure them, and move along the way. So it was a really powerful lesson that unfortunately I had to learn the hard way, but that I really am excited to talk through and share with all of you today. So, over the course of our hour together, this is what we're going to focus on. We're going to talk about why goals matter, even if you're a one or two person shop. Okay. So, being a one person business or small business, not an excuse to not set goals. And we're really going to get into why that can be important and why it's challenging. We're going to talk about two parts of effective goal setting. So, there's like literally a zillion frameworks out there for setting goals and for business strategy and how you want to do it. All of that's really helpful. But luckily, I've read all the books and I kind of know all of that stuff. And I think there are a lot of really simple ways to start for businesses. And so I want to share the two parts that I think are critical to getting into the muscle and the engine as a company of actually setting business goals. We're going to talk about how to know if you're on track in real time. This is often one of the biggest challenges is like, cool, we did some goal setting in January. Now it's June. Am I doing good? Where am I on it? So we're going to get into that. I want to highlight some of the big mistakes that people make when setting goals. That's really important so we can flag those for each other to note, hey, I think we're kind of getting stuck in one of these areas. We're going to be really clear about that. And then I've got some really practical tips and actually some resources about how to make your goals stick. So with that, I want to give just a little bit of a shout out here that I would highly encourage you all to snap a picture or take a screenshot at some point during today's session, because there's going to be a really killer giveaway that I'm going to announce at the end of this session that I feel like you're going to want to take advantage of. So just make sure that you take a screenshot at some point of something that really stands out to you, and that will help set you ahead for our giveaway towards the end. Okay, so let's talk about what happens when you don't have goals. We talked about this a little bit right up front, but this is where you can get into reactive mode. This is where you get stuck in that loop of accepting any job that comes your way, even if it's a low margin job or a tough job that just actually doesn't fuel your business. This is where you kind of start to have no filter for what actually matters the most, right? As small business owners, often we're faced with so many competing priorities. It can be really difficult to know, are these the right things? Am I focused on the right stuff? And I can't make informed decisions. So thinking about it from this perspective, let's say it's March, it's next month, we're about 4 weeks from now. And let's say you've made a certain amount of money as a business. Well, if you pause and you actually think about that, is that good? Is it not good? Are you on track? Are you not on track? Right? Thinking about the work that you're actually doing. You're probably busy. Like chances are you are busy, but are you being productive? Is that effort actually moving you towards where you want your business to go? You're probably following a lot of best practices and things that you've heard on Instagram or from all the business gurus. But a lot of times, if you pause, it's hard to actually tell if those things are working for your business. And so then, honestly, a year's going to go by. It's going to be December before we know it. You're going to look back at your business. You're going to be exhausted, but you're possibly going to realize that you're not actually any closer to where you want to be. So we all know that we should be setting goals, but I think it's important for us to really name and really look at each other and say, but why are we not? What's getting in the way of this critical role that a business leader needs to be thinking about. And there are a ton of reasons that get in that way. I mean, I named mine, right? I tried to set the goals and then life got so busy, they just ended up on a shelf. That was absolutely indicative of my first year in running an agency. So I've listed a handful of things here that I talk to business owners and hear all the time. One is like, look, I already know where I want to go. What's the point in slowing down and taking pause and like actually writing it down? Yeah, I get that. But without actually breaking it down and making it really tangible, it makes it hard to make strategic decisions on the day to day. Another one that I hear from a lot of folks, a lot of people start their own businesses because they wanted to get out of the corporate slog, right? The like 9 to 5 corporate office setting. They want to do their own thing. So sometimes goal setting frameworks can feel a little bit too corporate, which I totally get. But like I said before, goal setting for small businesses does not have to look like what you do in a corporate job or with a massive, massive company. It can be simple and it can be really flexible, which is what we're going to talk about today. Another one that comes up a lot is like, I don't want to be locked in. I've got to be flexible. What if I set a goal and then all of a sudden this huge new opportunity falls in my lap? Again, there are ways to set goals that can still be agile, still be flexible, and sometimes not hitting your goals is actually as valuable from a learning perspective as achieving them. So, all to say, I know there are so many reasons why we might not get to goal setting, but the more that we can strategically think about what we want to do, that helps us stay away from reacting to whatever comes our way and instead giving ourselves better tools to make sure that we are making the right decisions with our super limited time and energy. So here's the mindset shift. Goals are not just about where you want to go, but they're about knowing if you are on the right path while you are getting there. I actually care a little bit less about what your end goal is. I want to know, do you have milestones and mile markers in place to help measure ahead of time if you are actually going to achieve the goal? That is the real difference. Getting real-time feedback instead of just waiting until the end of the year or the end of the quarter or the end of your season to see if you have succeeded. So I'm going to teach you some of the tools around how to do that. And the basics here that we're going to cover are first, setting an objective. And the objective that you set is your final destination. Now, when I say that, I do not mean your 10-year plan. We want to be looking at like a 3-month quarter, maybe a 6-month half year, maybe a 1-year goal. But we want to set an objective around what is the big thing that you want to accomplish at the end of that period. And then what I actually think is the secret sauce here is we need to set leading indicators. And these are the mile markers along the way as you are moving down that path to achieving that goal that you need to hit to make sure that you've got the confidence that you're moving in the right direction. So again, this can be very flexible. It works for any type of goal, which we're going to get into and talk about some examples today. But this is what you really need to have in place. Your leading indicators, which is the path that you are following and tracking to make sure that you are achieving those goals that you are visioning and dreaming about as a business owner. Okay, so to dive into that and take it a level deeper, the first part that we need to establish as business owners is our objective. So this is the big, exciting thing that you want to accomplish. I always like to think of this as your North Star. So what is the North Star that you want to accomplish over your intended period of time? And there are a bunch of different ways that this can actually be shown up and how you can actually craft your objective. It can be quantitative. So that is like a numeric goal that you want to achieve. Perhaps that's a revenue target, right? Or a certain number of clients or projects you want to close this year. It can also be qualitative. So this is something that's a little less tangible. It's not a number, but it's something that is a feeling or a dynamic or a circumstance that you want to create. So an example here is being known for delivering the best client experience in your field, right? That's not necessarily something that we measure with a number, but we know if we are accomplishing that. That's a qualitative objective. And then the third type of objective that I like to include here is what I call operational. So this is more around how your business runs. This is about efficiency metrics or measuring how much time is being spent on certain things, more about managing how your business runs. And so this is why it matters to actually have one of these three types of objectives. Because if you just name your objective, like achieving a sales number, right, you can create a filter for decision making. If you understand as a business owner what the most important thing is, the new universe that you want to create at the end of your goal period, that helps you understand if you are prioritizing things in the right way. So if your goal is that qualitative, creating the best client experience, it might mean you need to slow down on sales and focus on fewer clients. But if your goal is a revenue target, that means you might need to streamline everything so that you can serve more clients. And those are just a couple of examples. But you see how naming the goal, naming what's so important to you, can help give you that filter for how you make different decisions. So without your objective first being clearly stated, you can't make those strategic choices. So this is how we have to start. Otherwise, that's where you get into the zone where you're just winging it on the day to day. So I wanted to put together a couple of different example objectives. We're going to talk through a few different of these. This is sort of a real example in a fake scenario, right? So this is for a photography business. So for photographers, an objective might be on the quantitative side to book 30 weddings at an average of $4,000 each. Awesome. That's super measurable. It's super quantitative. That is setting a goal of exactly what we want to accomplish, and it's something that can guide our decisions. Amazing. A qualitative goal might be to become the go-to photographer for luxury weddings in Austin. Okay. Also, super clear. That gives me a sense of what it is that I want to shoot for, the big North Star that I am aiming to go after, and helps me really align my practices accordingly. Maybe an operational goal could be build a scalable editing workflow so that I can reclaim 10 hours per week. Holy cow, if I could do something that helps me reclaim 10 hours a week, imagine what I can achieve. That is an awesome goal, an awesome objective that could really help move the needle in your business. So all of these are valid. None is better or less good than another. It just depends on what's going to matter most to you in this current moment as a business. So here's another couple of examples in a little bit of a different industry. Let's say that you're a designer, a brand strategist, copywriter, agency in that world. A quantitative goal might be to close $150,000 in project revenue this year. Awesome. That's a super quantitative goal, helps you keep on top of your priorities. A more qualitative goal could be known for helping businesses clarify their messaging, right? We want to be the premier agency that helps to do that. Awesome. Premier agency, that gives us an incentive on where we want to go. We want to be top tier. We want to be right at the top. We have a good ICP here, an ideal client persona of creative service-based businesses. And we really want to put our flag in the ground around being the best in the business at clarifying a brand message. That is a killer qualitative goal. And then finally, an operational goal might be to transition from hourly billing to value-based project fees, right? Really important strategic decision that you might be thinking about, you might need to make. And that's an excellent operational goal to really help to drive those things forward. So do you notice how different these are? They are really, really different in the way that they are crafted, but all are equally specific and equally important, just depending on where you are as a business. So the big key that I want to encourage everyone to do, if you are new in goal setting, is to pick one that is the biggest priority. And I really like setting goals for a 6-month cadence. Typically, with big picture goals that are moving the needle on your business, it takes more than a couple months, but it probably shouldn't take a full year, right? So I really like 6-month goals, and that should give you focus on how to prioritize your effort for that 6-month period. So as we continue to go today, I really am going to focus on let's get that one killer objective in place. absolutely fine. If you've got a couple of objectives as a business you want to pursue, we're just going to focus on one today. So now that we have our objectives in place, these are our North Star business goals. This is where the magic happens. I talked about this a few minutes ago. This is like the secret sauce. This is your like special magical ingredient on how to really make this work. This is my favorite part of goal setting. Leading indicators. These are the things that you can measure now and along the way that can predict if you are going to hit your goal later. So here's the really frustrating thing about objectives and goals. Until you actually hit it or don't, you don't know if you're successful. And we absolutely cannot just work and hope, going back to hope, that we're going to hit that goal in 6 months, right? So the way that I like to think of leading indicators and objectives is thinking about this like a map. So your objective is that final destination, but your leading indicators are the highlighted route that your Google Maps or Apple Maps tells you that shows if you are on the right path to getting there on time and in one piece. So looking back at some of the examples that we kind of talked about already, let's say that you want to book 30 weddings this year. Again, we won't know if we've achieved that until December. And what if you're really slow earlier in the year and then wedding season pops up, but maybe it's a little slow at the beginning of wedding season. Maybe you've got like a huge fall rush that happens. That's a lot of unpredictability, right? Throughout the whole year. Oh my gosh, we don't know. Will we get to 30? Unclear. So think about it this way. If you start to track inquiries, consultation calls, starting to track conversion rates, that starts to give you that early insight and that early feedback so you can begin to course correct earlier in the year. And that can be really game changing. So when it comes to leading indicators, there are 3 different types of metrics that you'll want to think about building. And I like to say mixing 2 of these will get you the best result. But we're going to look at some examples. We're going to workshop this a little bit. So here are the 3 that are just good to internalize. The first is a numeric leading indicator. So this is a specific number you can track. Think like 50 inquiries, 5 inbound leads, 50% inquiry to close conversion rate, right? Anything that you could literally plug numbers into a calculator or a spreadsheet and be able to measure. The next type of leading indicator is what I call a task-based metric. This is like a project or an action that you commit to. So this could be publish 2 social media pieces per month. This could be posting 3 times a week on one of your social platforms. This could be writing 1 blog post every month, right? So those are projects that you are doing to hopefully influence that end result. That's a task-based leading indicator. And then finally, I think it's really important that we give ourselves grace, if we have never done this before, to set a baseline leading indicator. So this is establishing where you are now so that you know what to improve. So this could be tracking your current conversion rate for 3 months before trying to improve it. I am a big believer in if you don't have those numbers already, don't set an arbitrary goal. If you have never measured your incoming lead and inquiry rate to closed project conversion, don't set an arbitrary number of 50% or 75% conversion because you actually just don't know where you are right now. So it is absolutely okay as you get going in this process to say, for this objective and this period of time, I'm going to measure my baseline so I know where I am now and then have the information to improve that over time. So, as I mentioned before, it's good to have a mix of different types of leading indicators, and here's why. If you only have task-based leading indicators, you are just making a to-do list. If you only have numbers or numeric leading indicators, you might not actually know which actions to take to hit those numbers. So it's the combination of different types of leading indicators here that makes this really powerful. Okay, so we're going to go into a couple of examples here. First example, Let's say that our objective for a photographer, which is that quantifiable type of objective, is to book 30 weddings at $4,000 each. Here are some examples of what leading indicators could look like. Receive 50 plus qualified inquiries per quarter, booking 15 plus consultation calls per quarter, maintaining a 50% consultation to booking rate conversion, post 3 times per week showcasing recent work. So take a look here. There's a good mix of different types of leading indicators, right? We've got some good numeric ones at the top here around inquiries, consultation calls, conversion rate, but we also have a task-based leading indicator, which is about posting a certain number of times per week. This is a really good way to build out an objective and leading indicators so that over the course of a 6-month period or a 12-month period, okay, we know that 30 weddings is our goal, but if we can make sure that we are incrementally moving ahead on these leading indicators, we're going to have a lot more confidence that we're going to hit that number at the end. So this is an example of really where the combination of setting all of this together helps to focus and prioritize our work. All right, so here is an example, again, for that designer, agency, strategist space. That's a qualitative objective. So the objective here, being known as the premier agency to help creative, service-based businesses clarify their brand message. Some leading indicators that could fit here. Publish 2 thought leadership pieces per month. Speak at 2 industry events or webinars per quarter. Receive 5 plus inbound leads per month, mentioning brand messaging specifically, and track mentions, tags, and client testimonials about messaging clarity. So again, really good blend of task-based and numeric leading indicators to make sure that we're not just doing a to-do list here, but that our to-do list of 2 thought leadership pieces per month, right, leads to 5 plus inbound leads mentioning brand messaging. Making sure that if we're speaking at these industry events, that can lead to more inbound leads. And then we're delivering such exceptional client service that we're getting testimonials about the thing that we want to do. So a really good blend here of different types of leading indicators towards our qualitative goal. If we accomplish these things, these leading indicators, this will tell you if we are moving in the right direction to be known as the premier agency helping in this manner. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about the mistakes that I see a lot that can keep these goals from working. So as we go into this, I would really welcome anybody through anything we've talked about before or what we start to go into now as we begin to get into the moment where you're going to start workshopping your goals. Please feel free to drop any questions in the chat. We are going to have some Q&A at the end, so feel free to keep track of those questions. Drop them down now. Trevor and Joey are going to grab those things, but definitely know we'll take some time for questions at the end. Okay, so before we go into workshopping your goals, I want to talk about how to not approach this. These are some things not to do. These are mistakes, again, that I see a lot. They're really common, but they're also super solvable. I have made all of these mistakes myself. Do not mistake that from happening. These are all things that I've learned from and I see really often. So knowing what to avoid will absolutely help you get a jump start on doing this on the right foot. So mistake number 1 is confusing a to-do list with a strategy. This is the most common one. And I am going to say this with so much love and with so much learning. Even if you think right now, I don't do that, I just want you to take pause and really do some searching and some investigation here to see if this is a trap that you've ever fallen into, okay? So a lot of times when I work with businesses to build their strategy, to build their goals, everything that comes out in the first draft are tasks. Post on Instagram 3 times a week, send a monthly newsletter, attend networking events. And again, those are good things. But if there's no way to actually measure if those tasks are moving you towards your goal, you can spend all of your time checking those things off. And then time goes by, you did everything on your list, everything you were supposed to do, but you may not have hit your goals. Tasks are not bad, but we have to make sure that our tasks are leading us towards something where we know if those tasks are effective in helping you grow your business. So, again, tasks in and of themselves are not bad. They're actually great leading indicators, but they need to be connected to something measurable. So, in the example that I have here on the slide, let's say you have a goal, a task to send a newsletter monthly, which is awesome. I still have a lot of faith in email marketing these days. It's a good task. But if you shift this to generate 20 inquiries per quarter from my monthly newsletter, that shifts things here a little bit, right? That makes sure that you're not just following a task, doing it by rote, passively sending a newsletter, but you're starting to measure whether or not it is effective as a lead generation strategy. So it's just taking that extra little step. I always like to remind that busy does not equal productive. And this is a good mistake that connects to that. Okay, so mistake number 2, waiting for perfect conditions to set goals. So many business owners, so many people out there in the world, in our professional and our personal lives, think they need to figure everything out first. So a lot of times I hear, I need more data. I need to know my exact revenue from last year and exactly how it's broken out between all my different services. I need the perfect framework or I'm going to do it wrong. Now, this goal or this inception towards perfectionism is going to keep you frozen. I have seen so many business leaders say, I'm not ready yet. I need it to be perfect. And then they never get there. So during this kind of frozen period, you might be waiting for clarity that just may never come, right? Months and months are going to go by. You're operating without any direction. But the truth is that you do not need perfect data. You don't need perfect clarity. You just need somewhere to start. And so anytime that you have a business that has not built a really robust goal setting framework and muscle internally, I truly believe that a good enough goal that you actually use is infinitely better than a perfect plan that sits in a drawer. And you can always adjust your goals as you go. Goals don't have to be set in stone, but I just encourage you just get started. That's why even measuring a baseline in your performance as a business is so valuable. You will learn something. One of my favorite sayings that I learned from a mentor early in my career is, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And this absolutely applies to your goal setting. So mistake number 3 is thinking that goals only count if you set them on January 1st. We all get in this trap. This is why gyms, this is why apps like Weight Watchers or MyFitnessPal have a big boost in January, right? We all have our New Year's resolutions. We're so committed. And then February and March and April, they start to slow down and people start to give up those plans. Well, here's what I have to say about that. Do not approach this on, oh crap, it's January 15th or it's February 12th. I've missed my window. I'm just going to start next January. September rolls around. No way, it's too late now. This is just giving yourself permission to procrastinate. And I do not want that for you. I do not want that for your business. And here's what happens. You get to December and you realize you spent the whole year working on task lists or being busy, but not actually steering your business anywhere. I mean, yes, the best time to start a goal is in early January. Amazing. If you can make that happen, that is awesome. And that's like just an extra boost for you. But the second best time to set your goals is right now, wherever you are. If you are here live watching this on February 12th, get started now. If you watch the recording of this in September, oh my gosh, get started then. 6 months, 3 months of intentional direction is absolutely going to beat an entire year of just hoping that things work out. So stop waiting for that perfect time, right? It doesn't exist. Start now. Okay. Now we're going to get into workshop time. This is what I am so excited to be spending time with you all today. So here's going to be a little bit of a primer of where we're going to go for the next 8 to 10 minutes. I'm going to give you some prompts on the next slide. And I want you to take about 5 to 7 minutes to draft one objective and anywhere between 2 to 4 leading indicators. This is your first draft. Don't overthink this, okay? This is just a starting place. And I want to remind you again that good enough is going to beat perfect. This is not the only time you have to work on this objective. You can totally workshop it after our session, right? But I want you to get started and make sure to avoid those 3 mistakes we just talked about. When time's up, I'm going to ask for a few brave volunteers to share, okay? And I would love to give you some feedback, maybe help workshop some of these live, give you a little bit of course correction if that's needed, or celebrate the work that you've done. So here we go. I am going to keep an eye on the chat, but I really want you to take a stab at doing this. Then we will workshop it together and I'll answer tons of questions before we finish today. So everybody ready? Get a pen and paper, open up a doc on your computer, and we're going to get started. So here are your prompts. Number 1, what is your biggest priority for the next 6 months? Okay, what's the biggest priority for your business over the next 6 months? Number 2, what are 2 to 4 things that you could measure or do that would show that you are making progress? And number 3, I want to make sure that you mix at least 2 types of leading indicators. Numeric, which are numbers that you can track. Task-based, which are tasks that you can do to influence your objective. Or baseline. I don't have a number right now that I really need to measure, so I'm going to spend the next period of time measuring where I am so I know what I need to improve. So think about what predicts success for your objective, and that's how you want to build those leading indicators. What can you track now or in a week or in a few weeks that tell you that you are on the right path? So I am going to set a timer for 7 minutes. I'll give everybody a little heads up before we come back, but I want you to get started. So here we go. We'll go into some quiet workshop time. I'll call everybody back in 7 minutes. All right. I see a couple people saying you got a ton of goals, some folks that are done-ish. So let's come back together so we have a little bit more time to chat. And I would love to see if we have any volunteers to share what you came up with. I would love to walk through something. Candace, amazing. So let's go ahead. First person to volunteer. So Candace, if you want to go ahead and drop what you came up with in the chat here, I'll read it out loud. I'll give just a couple of thoughts here. We won't be able to get to absolutely everybody, but I've got some other tips coming up in the last bit of our workshop that I think are going to help. So Candace, if you want to paste in the chat what you came up with, or if there's anybody else that wants to get going, here's Candace. Okay. So biggest priority for the next 6 month goal, grow from 1 active student to 6 consistent intervention students. Stretch 8 to 11. I love it. And I love that you did that extra little stretch goal there. That's super cool. Not required for everybody. I really like to say, like, what's the goal that you want to get to? Let's set that. But I'm an overachiever, so I always like to set a little bit of a stretch goal myself. Okay, so first and foremost, really good objective here. What I'm seeing is that this is a quantitative objective, which is killer, very measurable, growing from 1 active student to 6 consistent intervention students. Obviously, this is really personal to your business, but again, what I see here very generally is super good goal. It shows growth, it shows stretch, and should keep you really prioritized. So then we've got some leading indicators. So I see baseline is one consistent student. Cool. That leads me to believe that that's kind of where you are right now. And measuring towards that, 6 to maybe 11 students based on your goal. Perfect. So task-based objectives to move the goal forward. Become the dyslexia referral specialist in my local networks. And you've listed some networks here. I love that. So one thing I want to tease out with you here, Candace, and I hope I'm saying that right. If I'm not pronouncing it right, just drop me the right pronunciation in the chat. Yep, amazing. Okay. So get 2 to 3 referrals from networking. Candace, I want you to make that its own goal. That is a numeric or a metric-based goal that is going to be so important to track. So you've got it in parentheses right now, but I would actually tease that out, because if you are doing all of these extra efforts to really pursue your goal, you should be getting more referrals. So that referral rate is a really good one to track. Okay. Then we see position Book Bloom online as a specialist in the area of your specialty and training. So add 1 online tutoring page You already strengthened language, amazing. Post 2 Instagram captions weekly using searchable language. Ask 3 past families for testimonials mentioning dyslexia or OG. This is great. So again, you do have a blend here of some task-based. There are some other pieces in it. One thing I think you might want to add to this idea of positioning Book Bloom as a specialist in your area is there one other type of numeric goal that we can set to make sure that as you are, adding your online tutoring page, posting 2 Instagram captions weekly and asking families for those testimonials, is there something else that will lead to? I'm wondering, could you tie, and forgive me if this is not perfectly applicable to your business, but let's talk about this in generalities. Could you tie perhaps, the growth of 2 to 3 students directly from inquiries from that online tutoring page? Or maybe it's tracking the baseline of what online inquiries you have right now on your website and see if your new online tutoring page that you create actually ups that conversion rate. You see more visitors turn into inquiries. So that might be one last piece there that could really help you get a leg ahead. But otherwise, you did a really great job here crafting these out. So well done, Candace. All right, let's take one more. Amazing. Good job. Awesome job, Candace. Okay, I thought I saw somebody else post in here an example. Whoever's next to paste their example, if you'd like a little feedback, Brenda, here we go. Okay, so nurture and offer value to my current 50 clients. Awesome. I love this because this already, as somebody who knows nothing about your business, I can see that you have really put thought and intention into what is it that you need to do to grow, to scale, to become more efficient. And that's nurturing and creating more value for your existing clients. That's going to give you a great prioritization filter versus, well, I don't know, I guess I could do lots of new business. Should I do high volume? Should I do higher cost? What's the thing? You've really nailed that down. So I love that. 2 to 4 things I could measure. How many site reviews? How many check-ins with ideas did I do? How many booked? Oh, hang on. Sorry, Brenda. I'm getting some movement here. I'm reading. Here we go. How many booked services from them? I think that's great. So how I'm interpreting that is, site reviews and check-ins might be standard practice with some of your clients. And based on that, how many additional services are being booked or how many kind of follow-up actions, maybe upsell or expansion from those activities. I think that's great. What I really like that you did here is you didn't just say, do X number of site reviews or X number of check-ins. You're tying those activities to what you actually want to see, which is more booked services, maybe more revenue, more renewals, etc. So it's a really good way of blending things. So you've got some additional information here, task-based. Review sites and create overview of options to improve the site. SEO, design, accessibility, etc. I think that's really, really good. So what I would do here is make sure that you have a little bit of a benchmark for success on if you make changes to these things on your website, what do you believe that will influence? Is it more website visits per month? Is it people who visit your website spending more time on your website? Is it right now, maybe you're getting some inquiries from new folks or your clients are visiting your website for content, but I don't know, you're just not getting really good leads. You're not driving really good conversations. So maybe you want to up the quality of those conversations or of new inquiries or the renewal conversations with your clients. So all those things related to upping your website and kind of improving your website are killer, but set yourself some leading indicators for if I do that, what do I believe will change or what do I want to change? Because I'll tell you, improvements on website can be a slippery slope. It can almost be like Alice in Wonderland's rabbit hole around there's always something more you can do. So I highly recommend, especially from a marketing perspective, to set some leading indicators around what performance benchmarks do you want to see if you improve those things. Okay, I'm going to do one more and then I'm going to go back to my deck and make sure we have some time to do some Q&A broadly at the end. Okay, so I see Laura dropped some pieces here. The priority. Get the company out of debt. Oh my gosh, such an important objective. And again, what's so great about the fact, Laura, that you already established this is it is going to give you a filter of focus When you get busy, when you get overwhelmed, when priorities compete, you know, okay, this is my North Star, this is my goal. So really, really good and very specific there. Measurable, percentage of debt paid to date. Here's what I would say about that. That's a great baseline goal. Let's establish what is the baseline of what I've paid, maybe the cadence of what I've paid so far, so that we know then how far we have to go. Another great leading indicator is how many new clients you signed. So, Laura, I'm so glad that we're getting to your example here because this is an excellent start to a leading indicator. And where I would suggest you take that like next step is really establish how many new clients you need to sign in order to, exceed your debt payments or get ahead of your debt schedule. So do a little bit of work, do a little bit of thinking on, is it one client? Is it 10 clients? Is it maybe 5 clients, but at a certain service fee threshold? Get a little bit more specific there on if I get X number of clients or X number of revenue, that's going to really help me get my company out of debt. So set that goal because if you look back on today in 6 months and say new clients signed, well, maybe you signed one client or maybe you signed 10, but again, that starts to get in that zone of like, well, was I successful? Did I do enough? So I want for you to have that benchmark so you can really track towards it. So that's awesome. With this one, I'm confused if the goal should be lead related, sales related, or mixing company expenses and new clients. Again, Laura, that is an excellent example to talk through because the reality is there's no perfect answer to that. And truly, you are the best person to make that decision. So this is one of those areas where I would highly recommend set yourself like 90-minute power time to really think through what are going to be the most achievable and most impactful levers to pull to get to that objective, that North Star that you're setting. And so that's, again, something you're going to know the best. And sometimes as business owners, we have to pick a lane. We got to make a bet and really get there, but set some of those goals for yourself, put some numbers behind them so that you can feel all the more confident. If I, focus on a lead goal, I'm pretty dang good at converting leads to new clients. So that is building up that pipeline. That lead pipeline is going to get me there. Or, I think I might be able to really focus on just a few more clients, but I'm going to up the price. I'm going to deliver something really exceptional. And that's going to help me get my way towards that debt relief. Awesome job, Laura. Thank you for sharing those. So again, I'm sure there's a bunch of others, but I want to make sure that I give you a few more resources because we are coming to the end of time. So let me go ahead and get my document back up and running for you guys. And I want to share a couple of great resources that I have built and I have utilized with different businesses that I think can be really helpful. So let me get my screen share back up and running and we will race to the finish line here. Okay, so we already did some volunteers, which is awesome. So just to make sure that we're giving, again, I want to reiterate some of these best practices. So once you have your goal, and I think you've gotten a great start, so many of you have shared awesome starting points. Please, if you hear only one thing from today, I want to make sure that goal does not end up gathering dust. So here are some things that I want you to do that can help make sure that this lives and breathes every day. I want you to post that goal and those leading indicators somewhere that you will see it daily. I have a whiteboard in my office. I put my goals right there. I also have a whole cacophony of Post-it notes where I write down some of those things as well. So whatever that looks like for you, I want it to be somewhere visible. I want you to remember it, okay? The next thing I want you to do is to set reminders to check in at least monthly. If this is your first goal setting exercise or you're really kind of getting back into it, I think you might even want to do this weekly, maybe bi-weekly. Even if your numbers don't change all that much in that time period, I still want you going back and looking at them. That's going to give you that filter. That's going to give you that way to make sure you're prioritizing the best attempts towards hitting your goals. So set reminders, because if we leave things to our own memory, it's not going to happen, right? So set reminders to do that. And then track progress as you go. There is nothing more fulfilling to me than being able to update a goal tracking sheet saying, heck yes, I got one more of those new students, right, Candace? Or I got one new client. Lauren, to your objectives there. Just make sure that you are updating and tracking progress as you go, both because missing our targets teaches us a lot and achieving our targets can feel so dang good. So make sure that you are doing that. Okay, really quickly, I'm going to share in just a minute a QR code where we got a landing page set up with some of my very favorite goal setting resources. And I put together, because I'm kind of a crazy person, on a weekend, a goal setting and goal tracking spreadsheet that I want to share with everybody. Now, look, I am by no means a spreadsheet expert, but I have done a lot of different sheets in my life to make sure that I am tracking things that give me the right insight. So this is just a template for you to go and make your own. Okay, it's not perfect, but I've got a spreadsheet where you can go in, customize different things that already have built-in formulas to help you build out and then track your goals. Tracking your goals is going to be the most difficult thing to commit to, so I wanted to give you a head start. So I'll talk through that in just a second. And finally, just to put a really fine point on all of this, when you actually create measurable and intentional goals, this is what you are going to accomplish. You can actively work towards successful outcomes and not just busyness. You can track real-time feedback on your progress and ultimately have a North Star to guide your business decisions. So I'm going to pause here for a minute. This is your QR code, okay? Scan this. It's going to bring you to a landing page on the Dubsado website. This is where you can access the worksheet. I have a full blog post, a like really long form guide on how to do all of these things that we talked about today. So if you need a little bit more information, do that. I saw some requests for screenshots or looking back at some of the slides. I would be more than happy to share this deck with you. So reach out to me, take a look back at the landing page over the next couple days. We'll make sure that there's some opportunity to do that. So again, I'm going to give last call. Take a screenshot of this if you don't have your camera in front of you for the QR code. I'm going to slowly move on to the next slide. So make sure you've got your screenshot here, although we will email everybody afterwards. And then the last thing that I said, since we are right up on time, is that I would love to work with one participant here on a 30-minute one-to-one goal setting session. So here's how you can enter for your chance to win this giveaway. Snap a picture of the session, including right now, if this is your last chance, right? Share it to your Instagram stories. Make sure that you tag at Dubsado. We won't see it if you do not do that. And we are going to select one winner. We're going to, you know what? I'm going to give everybody through the end of this week to share that story. So I'm going to contact a winner on Monday. Let's give ourselves a little grace here, give ourselves a little bit of extra time. But if you do this, snap a picture. We sure would love to hear your feedback on this session, how this was for you. And if you do that, Instagram story, tag Dubsado, we'll pick somebody, and I would love to kick it with you for 30 minutes and help you workshop this. So, holy cannoli, it is 12 o'clock. It is right at the time. Trevor, Joey, I know we've had some folks with questions. I'm really happy to do some follow-up afterwards, but is there anything burning that we should do in the next 60 seconds before we wrap up?
Hey, Annie. There were only a handful of questions from our participants, so I think honestly, this right here at noon, at the top of the hour, is a great place to call it. I think you covered just about everything, at least tangentially, that people were asking about.
Amazing. Amazing. All right. Well, everybody, I just want to say once again, thank you for joining me. I know that setting goals is really, really hard, but just know we are here. We are behind you. You can find me. Oh, actually, I forgot the self-promotion here. There we go. Here's how to get in touch with me. Feel free to reach out, anything that you guys need. I'm so passionate about this. This really, truly is one of my very favorite things to talk about. So reach out anytime and don't forget to enter the giveaway. Share your story, share your screenshot. Let me know how this webinar was for you, and maybe we'll have a chance to meet again real soon. So with that, everybody, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you to our audience who joined us from literally around the world. I hope you're about to maybe go to happy hour, maybe take some tea and go to sleep wherever you are. Thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you all again very soon.